Perspectives on Sustainable Fashion Practices within a New Zealand University, co-authored by Kim Fraser, Auckland University of Technology, and Donna Cleveland, Auckland University of Technology.
In a university environment where there is raised awareness of sustainable fashion issues, a disconnection remains between the how-to, based on existing theories, and the practice of actually doing it. The aim of this research was to profile the gap between awareness of sustainable design practices and the action of utilising these practices within an educational environment. The case study was conducted at AUT in the fashion design studios, spanning a period from November 2012 to March 2013. AUT promotes sustainability as part of the university's strategic plan and has a strong sustainable research cluster within the academic staff. In addition to this, AUT also acknowledges numerous international publications that identify possible sustainable fashion solutions.
In conjunction with this, sustainable issues and practices for the future of the fashion design industry are delivered by lecturers as part of the theory program within the Bachelor of Fashion Design curriculum. Students are taught about the corporate paradigm of the global rag trade, the environmental impact it has on our planet, and define social responsibility and its ramifications. They are encouraged to practice responsible design through practical assignments such as utilising economic design principles like clever cutting, technologically advanced systems like 3D printing and laser cutting to produce garments with the environment in mind, and considered fabric choices with social integrity as its core design principle.
Theoretical principles have raised awareness amongst the student body and lead them on a road to possible sustainable solutions such as slow fashion, remake, reuse and recycle, upcycling and techniques like clever cutting for zero waste designs. Whilst research and documentation has raised awareness of sustainable fashion design practices, there remains a gap between the how-to, based on existing theories, and the doing it. The lack of implementation of these methods in practice is evident, specifically within the university educational environment. The challenge is, this is not translating onto the shop floor. Vast amounts of pre-consumer textile waste are still apparent. This was evident at the end-of-year clear-out of the AUT University Fashion Design Studio, where a vast amount of textile waste was dumped by design students. Well-educated students choose to leave this waste after numerous instructions to remove it, where it is loaded into Burke's bins and its final destination is landfill.
The process of cataloguing the waste commenced with collecting discarded materials that was left by the students. This research was limited to the microcosm of designer waste accumulated from the studio, so that this collection provided a snapshot sample which formed the data mapping profile that was collated as part of this case study. This case study was a first at AUT, and it was imperative that the data collected had no bias so that the analysis of the statistics of patterns and trends would be accurate. After collection, it was necessary to map and categorise the waste in order to highlight the amount and types of wastage that had been generated. This mapping method was quantitative in nature as it involved calculating data, for instance the amount of fabric, paper, sewing materials, patterns and other waste that was available. In this case, the largest amount of waste was fabric, with a staggering total of 350 kgs. With polyester and polyblends making up nearly 30% of the total fabric waste, and nylon, wool, silk and acrylics and leather making up the rest. A literary review was conducted to examine 3 approaches to sustainable design education: tactics for change, fashion thinking, and a whole-of-university approach, and identified an existing gap between the awareness of sustainable design practices and the action of utilising these practices, specifically as it relates to the university environment. The report Tactics for Change, compiled by Williams, Baldwin and Fletcher in 2009, claimed that the present fashion system is failing and that at the current rate of growth, the world's natural resources would be catastrophically damaged. The authors posited an argument that the need for new and ever-changing fashion is responsible for the fashion industry's unsustainability. To explore these ideas, they utilised the London College of Fashion to implement sustainable practices, thereby initiating the direct education of about fashion sustainability. Inherent in both the report and teaching practices at LCF is the notion that sustainability can go hand in hand with cutting-edge design in an academic setting and be a mechanism for possible change. Additionally, their report states that technological advances alone will not be able to lower the rate of overconsumption to a sustainable level. They provide evidence that although there has been a massive jump forward in awareness, only 53% of those surveyed are willing to put this into action. Whereas Nixon and Blakely 2012 identified a design methodology aptly named fashion thinking. Their research found the key features of this approach as being its engagement with temporal, spatial and social discursive dimensions, as well as the priority it places on the articulation of taste and balancing commercial goals with artistic movements. They propose that there would be benefits if other industries incorporated this notion of fashion thinking into their product development and marketing cycles. They suggest that not only does fashion's fast-paced, ever-changing system work well, but even go as far as suggesting that if others don't follow the same approach, they will be left behind. They suggest that the fashion industry's knock-off culture encourages innovation rather than crushing it. Nixon and Blakely go on to suggest that Dolce & Gabbana's use of social networking platforms like Twitter illustrate how social media can play such a vital role in communicating with consumers and feeding relevant on-the-street information to the designer instantly. Nixon and Blakely demonstrate in their research that fashion itself is the innovator for advancing changes in sustainability, whilst Williams, Baldwin and Fletcher identified the opposite result and concluded that fashion is perpetuating the problem. However, Macmillan and Dyball 2009 used a whole-of-university approach to explore a connection between teaching sustainability in theory and putting it into practice on campus at the Australian National University. They found that linking the core ideals of sustainability in the classroom and implementing them on the university grounds was one of the most concrete ways to get students to see connections that they could take into the real world. This relationship with sustainability remained with the student after leaving university and therefore built on the capacity of students to become agents of change. This whole-of-university approach raised awareness and above all created action. Reconciliation of the research suggests that some research see the fashion industry as a commercial mechanism that is very dynamic and engaged with its consumers. However, the literature suggests that it is not sustainable in its present form. It seems that there are a number of research investigations surrounding sustainable practices, yet despite this awareness, over half of the people are not willing to translate that awareness into action. This disconnection between theory and practice remains a real challenge for sustainable fashion designers. Research suggests that it is necessary to integrate the teaching of sustainability theory with the action of sustainable practice. This highlights the importance of profiling the gap between action and theory within an educational institutional setting, such as AUT University. To achieve sustainable practice, it would be necessary to model it, lead by example. In turn, this would encourage students to incorporate sustainability into their everyday lives, and therefore make them facilitators of change in the real world. So what now? What does the future hold for sustainable fashion design education? Animation by Donna Cleveland.